Okay, picture this. For 4,000 years, China was ruled by hundreds and hundreds of emperors. Every single one of them was a man. Well, except for one. This is her story.
So this is her, Wu Zetian, the one and only woman to ever rule China as a full-blown sovereign. And I don't mean as a wife or a mother pulling strings from behind the scenes. No, she declared her own dynasty and took the title of Huangdi, which means emperor, not empress.
I mean, just let that sink in for a second. We're talking about an unbroken line of male rulers going back for millennia. And then, boom, there's Wu. She didn't just stumble into power. She clawed her way to the top, seized the throne, and for 15 years, she was the most powerful person on the planet. So the big question is, how on earth did she pull it off? How does a low-ranking concubine, basically a nobody in the palace, navigate that treacherous world, outsmart every single rival, and claim a title no woman had ever even dreamed of holding? That's what we're here to figure out. Her story doesn't start at the top, not even close. She first walked into the palace as a teenager, just one of many, many concubines, with a pretty uncertain future. But it was clear from the very beginning that she was different. This quote, man, it tells you everything you need to know about her right from the start. The story goes there was this wild, untamable horse nobody could handle. When someone asked the young Wu Zetian what she'd do, that was her answer. It was just this shockingly ruthless, methodical plan that absolutely foreshadowed the kind of person she was going to become. And her path to power was, well, a roller coaster. You can see here, she starts as a minor concubine, and then she's exiled to a monastery. That should have been it for her. Game over. But she manages to get herself recalled to the palace because the current empress, Empress Wang, wants to use her as a pawn against another rival concubine. That was a huge mistake on Wang's part, because in just 5 years, Wu outplays everyone and becomes the new empress consort. But her climb to the top, it gets dark. And no single event is more notorious or more debated than the death of her own newborn daughter. This single moment became the trigger that launched her to the absolute pinnacle of power as empress. And to this day, historians are still arguing about what really happened. The traditional view, written by men who despised her, is that she actually smothered her own baby just to frame Empress Wang. Horrifying. Others think, no, the jealous empress really did it. And now there's even a more modern theory that it might have just been a tragic accident, like crib death, caused by poor ventilation from charcoal heaters. We'll probably never know for sure. But whatever the truth was, Wu used that tragedy like a weapon. She blamed Empress Wang, who was quickly deposed and, along with another rival, eventually killed on Wu's orders. With her main competition gone, she started a systematic purge of anyone in the court who had ever opposed her. She was clearing the board. So, she's the empress now. But you think she's going to stop there? Not a chance. As her husband, the Emperor Gaozong, started getting sicker and sicker, her influence began to grow from, significant to absolute. Things got so unusual that the court actually came up with a special name for the situation. They started calling the Emperor and Empress Wu the Two Saints. Think about that. After the emperor had a major stroke, Wu's political power became just as strong as his. She wasn't just a consort anymore. She was effectively a co-ruler of China. And we're not talking about a year or two here. For 23 years, that's more than 2 decades, she was basically running the show. She handled the day-to-day work, she made the big calls, and she learned exactly how to wield imperial power, all while her husband's health just faded away. So when Emperor Gaozong finally dies in 683, the time for ruling from behind the curtain is over. Wu is ready for the main event, taking the throne for herself. And she was willing to do anything to get it, even if it meant getting rid of her own sons. And watch how she does it. It's not a rash decision. It's a cold, calculated, 4-step takeover. First, she rules as regent for her son. But when he starts showing a little too much independence, she boots him off the throne in less than 2 months. Next, she puts his younger, much easier-to-control brother in his place as a puppet. Finally, after years of building up her own power base, she forces that son to give up the throne, and in 690, she takes it for herself. She is now emperor. You can literally track her rise to power just by looking at her titles. She goes from Huang Ho, the empress consort, to Huang Taiho, the all-powerful empress dowager ruling for her son, to finally
Shengshen Huangdi, Holy and Divine Emperor. She even created her own dynasty, the Zhou, putting the famous Tang Dynasty on pause.
But her reign wasn't just about grabbing power and purging rivals. Not at all. She was also a huge patron of the arts and religion, and she left behind some incredible things, like this. See these amazing statues? These are from the Longmen Grottos. She commissioned them. In fact, that giant Buddha right in the middle, they say it was carved to look like her. She made Buddhism the official state religion, which was a pretty savvy move to help justify her rule. But maybe her most important reform was overhauling the civil service exams. This broke the power of the old aristocratic families and let her hire talented people based on their skills, not their family name. It was a game changer that brought a whole new class of smart, loyal officials into her government.
Wu Zetian ruled as emperor for 15 years, but all reigns eventually come to an end, and hers would be no different. To this day, her legacy is one of the most hotly debated in all of Chinese history.
Finally, in 705, she's 80 years old, she's sick, and court officials see their chance. They stage a coup, force her to step down, and put her son back on the throne, officially restoring the Tang Dynasty. She died just a few months later, and that was the end of her incredible life.
So, what's the verdict? How should we remember her? Well, that's where it gets really complicated. You can see two totally different versions of her. Was she a villain? A tyrant who used secret police to crush her enemies and may have even killed her own child for power? Or was she a visionary, a brilliant ruler who stabilized the empire, promoted people based on merit, and oversaw a golden age of culture? The truth is, she was probably both.
Look, her methods were undeniably brutal, but you also can't deny that her reign was a time of strength and stability. She proved without a shadow of a doubt that a woman could rule just as well as any man, if not better. So the question we're left with is the one historians are still wrestling with. Was she a ruthless tyrant who just did whatever it took to get to the top? Or was she a trailblazing ruler forced to be ruthless in a world that was designed to see her fail?